Hey guys, Joe Bonamassa here. I hope you enjoy this KTBA Artist Spotlight from the great Robert Randolph.
So many people don't know, right? So I was a very bad teenager. Growing up in church and all that. I was just like a bad kid, always into something, right? Always doing something wrong, like teenage kids do, right? And knowing that I know better, because growing up in church and have a whole family of preachers and all of this and that, you know, you're a teenager, you just do stupid stuff. So I was on my way to I'm literally going to jail once, right? As a teenager. So a lot of people don't know that. And because all of my friends were actually going to jail at that time, right? Some drug dealers, this and that, hanging out in the streets, doing all these things. And one day I just said, you know, I'm going to go in the house and I'm going to practice my guitar because all of my friends are dead or going to jail, right? And I started playing, and next thing you know, 20 minutes turned into an hour, and then you hear all these other stories. Hey man, you heard about so-and-so? So-and-so just got shot down the street, and so-and-so's in jail now. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna continue, stay on this path. So that's what the guitar has meant to me, because here I am today. When all of my friends, most of them, I would say 70% of them, went to jail, right? So it just brought me back to the correct way of living. And you look at this guitar that I play, the lap steel and the pedal steel guitar, it has brought me all around the world. Kings, queens, presidents, senators, hippies, you know, hipsters, you know, seeing all of these, meeting all these great people, sitting on boards of charities, foundations, helping out, going to colleges, talking to kids, going to high school, talking to kids, right? Who would ever thought that? Some people that I haven't seen in 25 years, 20 years ago, like, man, I just don't understand. Like, we heard that you were out here doing, but we don't know when did this all happen, because you were like one of the worst kids. So that's what the guitar has meant for me. So here we are today. The House of God Church in Orange, New Jersey. That's the local church that we went to. The others were, my church is an organization, sort of like this sort of Chitlin circuit. But that's where the pedal steel and the lap steel guitar is the main instrument. It goes all the way back to the 1930s. There's a guy named Willie Eason started this whole tradition of lap steel and pedal steel in church, and it's sort of become the Buena Vista Social Club of lap steel and pedal steel, you know, just hidden story. I grew up watching all my Albert Kings and Albert Collins and all those guys play, and those were our versions, I would say, you know, of Albert King and B.B. King and Muddy Waters. We had our own guys. So I grew up just wanting to play like those guys. Single note style, aggressive style. That was just sort of the roots of, you know, where I come from. So in Orange, New Jersey, where I came from, I was actually the first lap steel player in Orange, you know, in my local church, and in my family too. But so yeah, I grew up watching all of these guys play, and it was just such a beautiful sound that, you know, we were drawn to, you know. Because in our church, we didn't have organs. We just had, you know, we were sort of like the rockabilly guys. The age that I started playing, for me, well, I started playing when I was 14. My father bought me a little lap steel, which was actually given to me by this guy named Chuck Campbell. He had bought it at this place in Rochester. I think it's called the House of Guitars, right, in Rochester. It was this little lap steel, Oahu lap steel with the attached cord. All my friends used to tease me. It's like, what kind of guitar is that? You got this attached cord, man. You know? It's a funny story, but I learned how to play on that. You know, guys, Calvin Cook, Henry Nelson, these are all like my sacred steel, lap steel forefathers in our church that we grew up. Henry Nelson was still alive, and they would like sort of give me little pointers. Henry Nelson was like the greatest sort of single note lap steel player in the history of mankind. This guy, right? Long silver hair, you know. Imagine a black guy with long silver hair, man, right? Musicians dead or alive that I wish I could play with. Dwayne Allman, and Stevie Ray Vaughan, Prince. Well, I got a chance to play with Prince once, but, you know, not live. We were all in his house, kind of getting down. Stevie Wonder, alive. That's my crew. Because everybody else I get to play with, I guess. But I would like to jam with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, though, for some real reason. I want to play on Give It Away Now. That's what I want to jam on, right? I want to do a 20-minute version of Give It Away Now with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, like rage out, like, rah! I love that band.
Robert, it's been my honor, sir.
Thank you very much for having me here. Funny story, but I learned how to play on that. You know, guys, Calvin Cook, Harry Nelson, these are all like my sacred steel, lap steel forefathers in our church that we grew up. Henry Nelson was still alive, and they would like sort of give me little pointers. Henry Nelson was like the greatest sort of single note lap steel player in the history of mankind. This guy, right? Long silver hair, you know. Imagine a black guy with long silver hair, man, right? Long silver jerry curl, you know? And he would play, and it was the smoothest sounding playing you ever heard. And it was a beautiful thing, you know. He played this little 6-string. He played a 6-string Fender, Fender String Master, it was called, that he played. So he would come, Chuck Campbell would come, Ted Beard. They were all like. See, also we would travel to all of these different states where our church is. Excuse me. So we would travel to all these different states where our church is. It was Detroit, Chicago, New York, Rochester, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Miami, Florida, Charleston, South Carolina, Nashville, Tennessee, Charlotte, Atlanta. I mean, right? So it was in all of these major cities, all in the inner cities of these major cities, just our church. So we would travel, you know, every year to go hear these guys play and have all these different conventions. And, you know, I wanted to be like those guys.
So it's Pentecostal gospel music is what you were doing?
The church, yeah, the church's style of music was all Pentecostal.
Hey, what's that?
And hanging with T-Bone, it was such a great thing, man. He's a great guy. I feel like every artist should get the chance to work with guys like T-Bone. You know, even on this new record that we just recorded, who, you know, it's kind of this guy Dave Cobb, who's a great producer, very much like T-Bone, same kind of thing. He's not into like making something sound like the radio or trying to make it sound trendy. He's like, no, we're gonna make it sound good. We're just gonna write good songs. And for those of you that don't know Dave Cobb, he's produced, you know, Brandy Carlisle, Jason Isbell, Chris Stapleton, and all these other many great artists. So, and actually Dave Cobb grew up in a Pentecostal church in Georgia, which is, and I bring him up because he's like, he looks up to T-Bone. And so he records and hears and prioritizes sound and songs just as much as T-Bone does. But songs in terms of like just good songs, not like something trendy. Like let's make this trend. No, he's like, let's write a good song that you could sing for the next 40 years. And let's make it sound good to where somebody put this record on and this song on 40 years from now sounds timeless. You know, we all know what that music is. You hear it, right? When you're listening to the Allman Brothers, right? You know, you listen to Clapton, Layla, all these songs sound timeless, right? So that's kind of the path that, you know, really T-Bone sort of refocused me on that path, working with him. To go back to T-Bone, that was one of the great things about working with him.
Kind of like your grandmother slapping you on the head at church, right?
Well, they not, yeah, with T-Bone and my grandmother, they ain't that far apart in age. So they all grew up in the same era of slapping you upside the head and going like, what the hell is this?
So if there's one thing you could impart to a beginner just getting into the business or into the guitar, pedal steel, what would that be?
For a beginner, I would say for beginners, you know, to really listen, you know, when you start now, it's kind of weird because we all, you know, when you when you develop the love for music, it's usually for something like you just heard or something that's a part of your childhood, right? But it's always important to go back to the roots and the origin of where that came from. So for anybody young, always go back and listen. I tell, especially rhythm guitar players, I'm like, listen, you only need to play along to James Brown. Listen to some damn James Brown, 101 rhythm. Rhythm 101. You stay there. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's your karaoke. That's what you're going to play. Pick up the damn guitar and put on James Brown and play to that, right? If it don't fit in a James Brown song, that means you don't play it on stage, right? So I'll tell all those guys to listen to that. Chuck Berry, James Brown, all of the old Stones records, Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, right? I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out. Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jimi Hendrix, all of that, right? And because when you see a video of Jimi Hendrix, right, and it's kind of funny because all of us guitar players, right, and I'm gonna say this story, and I got many of them too, right, but when you look at Jimi Hendrix, right, the guy's playing and he's making all these sounds, and he's got like 2 pedals on stage, right? But all of us, we like, oh, new pedal, new toy, right? So we really got no natural tone because we got 5 pedals on, and we just like, hey, maybe this can make me do that, and this can make me do this, right? So we're all guilty of that, right? But that's what's important when you're watching guys like Hendrix and Stevie Ray and all of those guys. It's like they were natural guitar players, And of course they got to play much louder than we do today. They got away with it.
Well, you got that going on with the pedal steel.
It's like Joe Bonamassa with 6 amps on stage, right? But I never knew that. Somebody told me they were all on at the same time. I didn't know that until somebody told me that last night. I don't know if it's true, but I was like, well shit, maybe I need 6 amps on stage. I got to ask him that. He probably won't tell because it's probably one of his secrets,
No, what it is plexiglass in front of it.
Plexi.
Or also go deaf. So.
Maybe I should, you know what? Let me tell my guy, I need a plexi today, man. Because I can't get my amp sounding right today because I know it's loud. So yeah, let me get the plexi, turn it up loud, then you have all of the tone, right? I'm going back to the plexi.